Hi, I'm Steve Lentini, and welcome to my event. I'm a few minutes late due to technical difficulty, and thank you for understanding and thank you for joining. I'm here to talk about what I've promised, the acorn brain, and I've published information about the acorn brain and a few small videos where I talk about what I learned in my near-death experience, just how small-minded my own thinking was. And as I've shared this with others over 19 years, soon to be 19 years since the event, I've helped people expand their thinking from small minded, limited thinking to infinite thinking, expanding their thinking in leadership, in sales, at home, in their life. And we can all expand into abundance, success, and love. And the way to do it is to live separate from the acorn brain. Who's the thinker of the thought? You can expand into limitless thinking when you begin to develop a level of thinking above your thinking, a level of thinking above your thinking. So that means you begin to recognize where you want to default into reactive mode. I hyphenate the term react because it's something previously learned. It's where we have taken something from our past, whether childhood or early work years or school, or perhaps even on the job recently, and all of a sudden we've reacted and we're not getting the response we want from people. Perhaps we lead a team or a company and we're not getting the response we want from people. It has to do with small minded, limited thinking. And that what I learned is none of this goes with us. There should be a new term for death. It should be called What's Next. On November 18th, 2002, I was doing a intensive care stay, let's say. And one second I had two visitors at the end of my bed, and the next second I was one with everything and nothing. So fascinating. Words do not describe it. One with everything and nothing, one with the infinite. Now, I'm not going to go into all the details, but I have podcasts and other information on it, and I'll be providing more information here from time to time. But I can tell you, none of the small minded thinking that we have as humans, all the judgments, all the ways we break things down in such small ways, making others wrong, none of that goes with us. And we can model the infinite thinker, the infinite creation, the miracle we live in when we begin to breathe, slow down, be in the moment. There was only the present on the other side in what I now call What's Next. And it began on November 13th. I was doing a seminar, November 13th, 2002. 1 second was fine. The next second, I needed an ambulance. I mean, literally, no symptoms, was healthy. And the next second, needed an ambulance. And I survived two major events. Acute necrotizing pancreatitis. My pancreas had a blockage. I'd never had any kind of pancreatitis, anything wrong with my digestive system. And a blockage, a calcium blockage in my pancreatic duct caused it to fail and bleed out into my body cavity. And most people don't survive the first 5 days, which I found out later. In fact, 19 years ago, 30,000 people a year got it and 200 survived. 5 days later, I survived an acute myocardial infarction at around 2 o'clock, which I learned later from doctors and from the two visitors I had at the end of my bed. A few days later, I shared with them what occurred, and they said, I said I was in and out of consciousness. 1 second, I was fine. The next second, I was somewhere else. I was one with the infinite. And they said, oh, that was around 2 o'clock on the 18th. I said, how do you know? They said, oh, your vitals were crashing. The alarms were going off in intensive care. And the doctors and nurses came rushing in and said, out, this is it. Call his family. Now, surviving one major event is amazing. Surviving two major health challenges, even more amazing. I'm a walking miracle. Today, I have no symptoms. Everything works fine. And the lesson I got was The moment is where the divine is. People go searching for the infinite, and we take ourselves away from the now when we listen to the acorn brain, the reactive mind. It brings us into the past with a regret, or into the future wanting something other than what we have. And so it's important, be in the moment and work on developing a level of thinking above your thinking, where you breathe, you don't react, and you ask yourself, okay, wait a minute, is this true? Because often the automatic thought leads to an automatic reaction. And most of the time, it's not healthy. We get feedback. Life is feedback. We get feedback in a cause and effect world when we do something that's unhealthy or negative. And when we react and we lash out at people, especially if we're in roles of leadership, it clouds our judgment. We cannot make good decisions, strong decisions, nor allow others to feel like they can share with us. And that's the kind of environment we want to create. So you begin with the end in mind. What is it you want to create? And then begin to manage the thoughts that are in line with what you want to create. And as thoughts creep into your mind, as you develop this routine, like going to the gym, except this is for the brain, this is the neuro gymnastics. You start developing a daily routine where you begin to notice your acorn brain thoughts, and you separate some time between them and a reaction. And you can also notice that maybe there's some default patterns when you have the acorn brain thoughts. And some of those default patterns are things like worry, or that your self-worth is questioned by your own mind. It's fascinating, right? I've seen the opponent, and the opponent is me. And so what I've learned over time is that, one, none of that thinking goes with us, which is really amazing. It taught me that I was living from the outside in, which Western societies mostly do and teach and even encourage, with appearances and homes and money, and people are dressing a certain way, buying certain brands of clothes to make an impression. Now, I'm not saying that's not good, but it has nothing to do with your value. Plastic surgery and implants and Botox and all these things to change our appearance. By the way, there's only so much you can do, that time will eventually take us over. And then what happens is, a lot of people living from the outside in, they are not living. They're living for the impression they make instead of living from the inside out. So here's a point to ponder. We're always seeing what we believe. If we're successful, the top percentage of the population that has abundance, that has plenty of success, and maybe there's places they're lacking, like maybe in love, it depends on what they learned, and perhaps in success, what happens is they believe the story of the outside and they take it in, and they limit themselves. Living from the inside out means you understand that you are always seeing what you believe. And that means you appreciate life as a gift, that life is feedback. And when you feel resistance or something negative, you think about it as building your muscle for living. If you went to the gym to lift weights, or you go out and run, or you even do stretching and yoga, you feel resistance. That's building your capacity for the next level of yoga, next level of weights. Running builds your cardio, and it also builds, if you want to continue to grow the mileage you run, or the course, maybe it's hills you want to take on. Each set of resistance you feel builds you for the next level. That's the gift in life. Any resistance you feel is building your muscle for living. When you have small-minded, limited thinking, then each piece of resistance that we feel in life sometimes becomes a story we tell others. The woe's me, the victim consciousness. And expanding beyond that acorn brain, that small-minded thinker, think about the universe, the miracle you live in. We're not even aware of how big this thing is that we live in, right? Do ants know they live next to a bridge abutment, let alone a bridge? And think about humans. Do we know really what we live in? Are we ants not aware that we're living in a universe next to a bridge abutment? We can't even see the bridge. And if you can expand your thinking beyond believing what you see and you begin to understand all of life is a gift, that the divine, the infinite, the creator, God, the goddess, it doesn't matter what you call it, is in the now. And the reason we run away from the now is when it's uncomfortable. And that's the gift. If we can ask, what is this here to teach me? What can I learn? How can I grow? What can I change? And then there's something too that I really love about the work that Gay Hendricks does. In his book, The Big Leap, that he wrote many years ago, and if you Google Gay Hendricks, he's written many other pieces about our upper limit problems, where we limit ourselves. And I'm adding to his work in that if we're worried, or if our story at home was that married people bicker, or married rich people bicker, or that don't outshine your brothers and sisters, or that you're just, if you got the message, who you, why are you thinking of being a doctor, or a captain of an airplane, or an author, or a singer, or if we got those messages, they're small-minded, limited thinking, self-limiting messages. And with Gay's work, you can identify some of those where you limit yourself, where you fall back. Maybe it's a default pattern when you start to reach a new level. You recognize the things you're doing to hold yourself back, and it's because you're believing that small-minded acorn brain, the limited thinker. There's always possibility to expand into the limitless, and it's just a matter of what are we going to believe. If we understand we're creating our experience and we take responsibility for it, then we know we're always seeing what we believe, and we embrace life as a gift. And I can tell you, the same resistance you feel in any physical exercise is the same resistance you feel in life, and it's building your muscle for living. People with a lot of resistance actually in their lives are possibly being prepared for a greater future if they get the lesson. So if you're going through great resistance in your company, in your job, in the work you do, at home, that's the opportunity to learn and grow and change and have a greater love, a greater level of success, a greater level of abundance if you don't sink into the story. You understand you live in something limitless, and in a cause and effect world, you're the cause. The effect is being delivered to you as the result called life. So if you can get to the point where you view life as feedback and a gift, because after all, if what created a universe ever took its attention off of this, we would fail to exist. People worry about the apocalypse and saying the earth is going to end in 10 years because of climate change. Well, if that's the case, then we should all party. The government should give us each $1 trillion because there's only 10 years left, and we should all party. Humans know that's not true deep down. Do we have a responsibility to take care of one another, take care of the earth? Yes. But we've been here for billions of years, or the earth has, the universe has, as far as people know. We really don't know. It's an estimate. So we'll be here probably for billions more. And even if it does end, there's a what's next. I went from this physical existence into the infinite, where only the now existed. Only the now, which back in my hospital bed when I was back in intensive care, and there were more moments in between, but they were just nows, which was fascinating. I couldn't connect them together. There was no past or future. when I was in what's next until I got back in my hospital bed. And in the now is where I discovered being more present has expanded my abundance, my success, and my love. And it's my job to do that for all those around me, to inspire people to overcome that small minded, limited thinking and expand into what's possible for themselves. And if you follow a practice every day, like going to the gym for those of you that do, or yoga, or whatever practice you have, if you do that for the acorn brain, you'll stretch yourself beyond that small minded thinker. And we have many examples of how negative it is today. In today's environment, we're spending so much time making each other wrong on social media and in politics and in everyday life. We're just railing against one another instead of talking about it, negotiating, compromising. Even our leaders are not modeling good behavior. And that's our job in life, model the behavior that we want to see from others. And imagine at the kitchen table if we're modeling bickering and negative and even breaking people down into races and colors and political parties. It's small minded, acorn brain, limited thinking. And what are we teaching our children? We have the ability to expand into an amazing future. But guess what? Everyone else's life is none of our business. My journey is my business. I've often said in the last 20 years is that I've had enough difficulty managing my own life. I gave up managing others. But I'm sharing this information because of the amazing miracle being one with the infinite for some moments is amazing. And we have no idea what we're heading into. And it's a miracle. But the thing is, we live in a miracle every day. We're on a globe, probably the size of a marble in relation to the universe, or perhaps even a grain of sand. But here we are in a little marble floating around an exposed nuclear fusion plant that we call a sun to make it comfortable, to give it definition, just like the term universe actually gives it definition for our little acorn brain. So what I say is, remember, you live in a miracle. So besides floating around an exposed nuclear fusion plant at the exact right spot for life to occur, we also have a rock floating around us called the moon that affects our tides. Remind yourself daily when you get into believing the acorn brain, limiting yourself, worrying, not taking the next step, and staying in what I call your zone of genius, as Gay Hendricks calls it, or your passion. You came here with a passion and a certain genius to return it to the earth, to the universe, to give your gifts here. So if you're hiding out and you're not expressing yourself, if you're not saying what's so to others because you're afraid, or maybe you don't want to be uncomfortable or make others uncomfortable, you're actually breaking a law of physics. So that the acorn brain tells you, oh, don't share that, they're going to get mad. Or don't tell your employees that you want them to do this, they're going to be upset. Here's the thing. They feel it anyway. There's a law of physics, meaning there's an energy around communication. And when you withhold something and you think you're protecting others or yourself, you're actually breaking the law of physics. You're not allowing the flow. And that's a lack of integrity. And every time you do, when you risk others' wrath, or you say what's so for your employees with humility and vulnerability, wanting feedback. Hey, what do you think about this? Or here's some thoughts I have. Or where did we fall down on this particular mistake? Let's look at it in a blame-proof way. Let's discuss it. And let's look at life as feedback. Let's look at what can we learn from this moment and change and grow the company. But humans with small-minded thinking want to make it a disaster. We want to fire people. Who's at fault? We want to point fingers and make blame. That's the small-minded thinker. Now, to develop a level of thinking above your thinking, there's lots of resources. Wise Mind, Open Mind is a great book by Dr. Roland Alexander. Are You Ready to Succeed by Dr. Srikumar Rao. They all have a process about developing that level of thinking above your thinking. I have work like that, and I have books I've written, and there's coaching I do, but I'm not here to sell anything. If you want information on the more resources, you can email me, steve@stevelentini.com, steve@stevelentini. I'll spell it L as in Linda, E-N as in Nancy, T as in Tom, INI.com. And you can reach out to me on LinkedIn or from wherever you saw this stream, and I'll get back to you. Because my job, my purpose in life is to inspire others to have a life of abundance, success, and love, continually expanding from wherever and whatever level you're at. And it's possible, but you have to prove that to yourself. Never follow anyone or anything blindly. And if I say I found the way, ever, run away. Run away. And maybe check in with me in 6 months and say, Steve, did you regain your sanity? Did you pull your head out of that dark spot? Your journey can be a wonderful experiment if you understand how to look at life in a healthy way, that you're one with the infinite, whatever you call it. And you can overcome that small-minded acorn brain thinker. And when you do, you're stretching into what created this existence. An infinite power created this with how many species here on Earth? Trillions, probably, when you break it down to things we can't see, like microbes and dust mites and all the little things on our skin, all the little germs. Dr. Lisa Randall, who's a physicist, has said probably as many of the things below us that we can't see, there's that many things above us, so large we can't see them, which makes sense to me. And that's where our small-minded, limited thinker gets us into our hubris, where we have all the ideas how to save the world, instead of understanding what's ever here is here for a reason. It's here for us to use. That's why fossil fuels came about. That's why methane is now coming about, as we want a cleaner environment. And it's okay to tap into the earth in a good way to use these things. They were left here for us to use by something much bigger thinker than we are. And yes, our job is to leave everything and everyone a little better than we find them at every moment. Ponder this. Are we ants next to a bridge abutment? Are we even aware of what we live in, this miracle we live in, when we're believing any small-minded thought, any acorn brain limited thought? You could ask yourself, does this sound small-minded? And what's possible is limitless. And you can break through wherever you're at. I don't care if you're a billionaire. You could add a few more billion and do some real good with it, like Warren Buffett or Bill Gates and many of the other billionaires. Why not? But from wherever you're at, begin to leave everything and everyone around you a little better than you find them. If you're a tightwad, reach into your pocket and give that guy on the street or gal $1 or $5 or buy him a sandwich. Your job is not to judge them. That's their journey. But if your journey is that you're small-minded, perhaps it's time to break it loose. Break that acorn brain and plant it. Let it grow into an oak tree. Become a limitless, infinite thinker. And that's my message. I'm glad to help. If you have any questions, just ask me. And I'm just looking around here to end it. I'm getting used to what's the process for Vimeo and for live streaming. And thank you for understanding. And I'm grateful. I'll be doing these every Friday for a while, some different topics that can help you overcome any small-minded, limited thinking and expand your life into abundance, success,